What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome back, everybody. This is your show, Compra Casa San Diego, real estate and mortgage info en tu idioma. Thank you all so much for checking us out these past episodes, for giving us all the great feedback that y'all have. We really appreciate you reaching out to us. This really has been a very cool experience for all of us here, including our buddy Diego, who's not with us today, but he's probably grinding coffee right now and getting ready to percolate something. So, but thank you guys again, and we really appreciate you checking us out. And as always, as I said, this is your show. We want y'all to ask questions, get informed, feel comfortable with the home buying process with us, your real estate and mortgage professionals. Real estate professionals with Realty One Group Pacific, and with your mortgage professionals at Secure Funding Group. Yeah. Let's go. All right. So thank you guys again. I'm going to jump right into the show. And topic of today's show is what's involved in the home buying process. And so, you know, we all hear the success stories when everything's all said and done. Everybody's getting their keys, they're all happy, kissing babies, hugging grandma. But, you know, there's a lot of steps. As we've mentioned plenty of times, there's a lot of steps to the process. And so we just kind of want to dive a little deeper into really in this particular show, what are some of the upfront costs that most buyers don't know that they're going to need to be shelling out or paying when they get their offer accepted.
Or they have to be ready for that.
And we want you guys to be ready for it and prepared, right? This show is all about having you all be prepared and get ready to take that next step to be homeowners. And so, again, what's involved in the home buying process? And so, Angela negotiated a kick-ass deal for you. She got your offer accepted. Congratulations. You're working with Secure Funding Group. They can close deals in 17 days, if not sooner, but let's leave it at 17 days because, we always want to under-promise and over-deliver. So you get your offer accepted and you're in escrow, or at that point, you have a fully executed contract between yourselves and the sellers of the property. So you're in escrow. Angela, when you're in escrow, you're going to be receiving a couple of different emails from multiple people.
Everyone.
From everyone.
Let's break it down. Handle the listing side, and then we can also talk about the buyer side.
Sure. Okay. So the listing side,
she just opened escrow with as the listing agent.
Okay.
Right?
So
it's a good information to talk about on the selling and the buying.
Is there cost for the seller up front when they open escrow?
There can be costs, actually. So when we sit down with the seller to analyze the sale of their property, there might be some things that we want to take care of up front. That could be potentially HOA documents have a cost factor to them if you live in a condo or in a community that requires it, in preparation for what the rules and regulations are. So there are costs to that.
Maybe pre-inspection.
Possible pre-inspection. That's a great one. We're actually having a lot of sellers right now consider a pre-inspection.
What could that look like, that cost?
It depends on the size of the property. That's what we've seen. Typically, home inspectors will go off square footage. Okay. So if his home is anywhere from 0 to, let's say, 1,000 square feet, it could be for anywhere between 300 and 500, and then kind of, segment it out after that. So, that's a really important thing if sellers are concerned about condition of property. And it's important, especially if you have an older home, you might want to kind of get a scope of work. And what I tell my clients is basically you want to be able to negotiate what's fair. Everybody wants to walk away with a fair deal, and things will come up. You're not buying new construction and you're not selling new construction. So we want to set the right expectations. Other costs that could come into play are if the seller is open to those types of investigations would be a termite report. Termite work that might need to be required because some lenders, and we'll talk about what SFG's guidelines could potentially be, for termite can vary, right? So if we have a buyer who their lender requires that, right? And so that may not be something we can get around. And so my job as a listing agent is to market the property to everybody. And that means anyone who has a VA loan, everyone who has an FHA loan, everyone who's conventional, cash,
down
whatever.
Payment assistance.
Down payment assistance, right? So with these inspections, it might be required. Well, then that might pull a whole buyer pool out for me. I may not be able to sell to that VA buyer because the complex isn't VA approved. And how do we know that? Well, we have to get in touch.
By termite.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and it's just not necessarily for, let's say, for a guideline, but it could be required by whatever the financing company wants. So it varies, but we want to be able to provide all that info up front. And then on the buy side, obviously, we'll switch gears.
Let me switch it up.
Hold on. So, Angela, this is actually a question that came up also recently from our audience.
Thank you guys for reaching out to us. We love
a question that came up. And you mentioned right now potential pre-inspection in general, and this is actually a question. Inspection. What is it? What is an inspection, and what is it? How does it help either the seller in this case or the buyer?
Well, a home inspection is a licensed an individual that will come in and basically inspect all the inner workings of the house on a surface level kind of inspection. And what I mean is they're going to test outlets. They're going to do a walkthrough. They're going to test water pressure, things like that. They're going to, the roof. But
I think 4 main components would be roof, foundation, electrical, and plumbing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even, from... let's say there's a broken tile. They're going to know the broken tile, right? Those are things that they have to call out in inspection.
Cosmetic.
That would be cosmetic.
That would be cosmetic,
Right.
but it's still something that's a defect on the property. So if it's missing something or what have you, light bulbs are out, they don't work, it doesn't
Or a
mean...
red flag for further inspection.
Exactly. And that's the bigger thing, is to say, I am going to provide this report to you based on my findings, but I'm going to recommend based on what I'm seeing in the roof. I am not a licensed roof inspector, but I'm going to require or recommend a roof inspector come to see it. So this scenario happens a lot.
Based off of the size of hole in your roof, I'm going to recommend a roofer to come in. Right.
And a lot of sellers... they know there's been issues
Right.
in their home,
Right.
so they want to get in front of it. And so, if we have a property that we're trying to sell for $900,000, but we know we have a roof issue, is that going to be something we're going to negotiate? Right? Seller's aware and ready, and it's like now. If a buyer comes in and says, well, I need $50,000, but we know the cost is $30,000, and we're educated and really trying to limit surprises.
And on the
bigger
buy
deal.
side, it's the same thing, right? You have a buyer. I'm always going to recommend that you do a home inspection, whether the home is in great condition or even if it's a fixer-upper and it's obviously needs
Everything done.
And touch on this really quickly because Ricardo said, I'm going to recommend. Keep in mind, a home inspection is not a requirement, right? So it's an optional inspection, but you as the potential home buyer need to get an inspection on any property that you consider
very
buying. So
And the
recommended
reason
to get an
reason that I
inspection.
say recommend is because I can't make you buy something. I can't tell you this is what you should buy. I can only help guide you and help you make the right decision.
And protect.
Of course,
right.
obviously.
Right.
But
That's what our
the
job is.
purpose that when I'm with my buyer, I say this is going to be one of the out-of-pocket costs, right? And it's the same thing. It's going to vary depending on home. But really the purpose of the home inspection is to be aware of its current and present condition because you are buying the property as is. And having that home inspection is going to help you make a really good decision for yourself. You're going to know its current condition and you'll be able to decide if you are willing and able to move forward with its present condition. And if there is an opportunity to negotiate some repairs or credits, or if this is the clear no,
The
right?
deal
This
breaker.
is like, okay, no, the condition of the home is way worse than what I thought it was going to be. I want to walk away.
It's important to highlight key word in that sentence, which is negotiate. Repairs are negotiable items. The seller's not required to fix anything. Granted, it's in their best interest to work with you to get those items repaired, either in the form of physically getting them done or in the form of a credit to you as a potential buyer. But they are negotiable items. So please keep that in mind when it comes up to that
and
point.
I think we have to also come back to, because I don't want to confuse the audiences, as a listing agent, someone who's working with just the seller, if we do a pre-inspection, we are required to use that as a disclosure. But please do not, buyers, get your own home inspection.
Right.
We recommend you vet 3 individuals,
370.
3 companies.
Right.
That's our protocol. And find out who you'd like to work with. Select the inspector you would like to work with. The seller is not obligated to provide any reports to you. Due diligence is what the first few weeks of the transaction allot for, depending on how you structure your contract with your agent, with someone like Ricardo, because that is, I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of buyers say, well, tell the seller to give me the report. No. Excuse me. Wait, let's backtrack. You're buying a home with a swimming pool, sir. You're gonna have to get a pool inspector out here. That is at your cost.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I was just agreeing with
there's a lot of information already coming at you all in the first 5-10 minutes of this, and I'm glad that we're touching on because it's really important. And just to kind of pile more on top of that, something that Angela said, where it's up to you as a buyer to do your due diligence, to do your inspections. You are also still going to be receiving information from the sellers in the forms, primarily 2 different forms. One is a TDS, which is a transfer disclosure statement. The other is an SPQ, or seller's property questionnaire. Angela, what are those 2 forms?
So those are 2 documents that are required by the state of California for a seller to fill out and complete. And there are very specific pointed questions on things that have happened potentially in the property. Has anyone passed away in the home? Has there been a fire? Do you have unpermitted space? Did you paint in the last home? There's insurance claims. There's very specific questions. And the reason why is because the seller needs to provide to a buyer anything and all that they know that happened during the time of their ownership.
I must have missed that form when I bought my house.
I must have skipped right
over it.
I have a question.
And I was going to say that's why it's so important to work with the realtor, because sometimes people think that, I can do this by myself. These are really important documents that, as a buyer, you need to have
and be aware of, though.
And if you're buying a home from someone who's selling them themselves and they're not providing you with this information, you can run into huge problems.
So we've had issues where there was an insurance claim, and now the home is not insurable.
And that's happening extremely often.
That is our number one problem right now in the state of California is insurability. And so what we do as a listing agent, working with sellers, is I go through these forms with my clients to say, what has happened? Provide me information. If there was a claim, if there was modifications done to the property, can you provide me receipts? Do you have work orders? Do you have anything, that documentation that could substantiate the work that you completed, so that when we provide it to the buyer, that they're fully informed on what happened? Do any warranties carry, right? If you bought a brand new refrigerator, does those warranty carry? If you fix the roof, is it a limited warranty? Because we want to be upfront with all of that. Because on the buy side, when you're looking at disclosures, then what are you asking for, right? All that documentation. Correct. Because we had to vet that with them to make sure that if there was a fire in the home, was it remedied properly? Was it an insurance claim? How is that insurance claim going to affect the new buyer when they go to get a quote? Is that going to up the price? And then how does that affect you guys, right?
Right.
You have a guesstimate, right?
Because that does come into play.
Absolutely.
And since we're talking about, costs associated with, the purchase of your home, and we're talking about home inspections and insurance, Myrna and I just had a situation with one of our buyers. Actually, our last 2 buyers, we had a situation, usually, and you can elaborate a little bit more on this, but the insurance is usually rolled into your closing costs.
Correct.
But in our situation, the last 2 times, that didn't happen. The buyer had to pay for it up front.
In order to move forward.
And why was the reason that happened?
Because right now, insurance companies are
Everybody's leaving California.
Well, one, all insurance companies are leaving California. So the ones that are still in California, they're going to triple their price. And because of our qualifying ratios, we're having a lot of issues. So we're going through some state insurance. And what are they doing? Taking forever. So what do we have to do? We have specific time to close. So sorry, sir, but now instead of $700 a year, and now it's going to be $2,100. And we have to move the process a little bit faster, and we have to charge the clients up front. So
and it gets a little scary because sometimes if we're pushing the limit on their purchase power,
correct,
and the insurance company won't insure the home at the price that we're at, and now we have to increase that by $100 to $200, like that, the deal can completely fall apart, and it gets very stressful.
It does, and I think it's important that on a disclosure level, you keep alluding to this and saying this, like it does matter who you work with, because there are specific reports that the sellers provide that I order on their behalf for the property that clearly define that. Right, and this is information we could clearly
And
have
it
that
could save, potential future issues for someone who is barely qualifying and able to, again, for guidelines, not for their own personal.
And the other thing is solar, right? Because California is big on solar, and if solar disclosures are the same, and they can also carry a cost factor.
So for those of you watching this show, there will be homework. I'll expect it in by the end of the week. No, but
what are the costs that go into buying a home?
There's a lot of information coming up. I just want to take a quick breather so we can kind of reset real quick. And I want to thank you all again for listening and checking out the show. But this is so important to understand.
¿Y qué pasó con toda nuestra audiencia?
Exacto.
Pues
Habla
dame un minutito.
Ahora,
Ahora, Mirna, repita todo eso en español. No, de verdad es muy importante que ustedes escuchándonos sepan algunos de los los primeros pasos en comprar una casa, más importante los primeros gastos que ustedes como compradores van a tener ahorita o vendedor. Entonces, en este caso estamos platicando, por ejemplo, como el vendedor o el comprador comprando una casa nueva, hay gastos cuando le acaban de aceptar su oferta. En este caso, el gasto de la inspección de la propiedad, que la inspección es diferente que el avalúo de la propiedad. Entonces, pero más a ratito platicamos sobre el avalúo. Ricardo, platícanos sobre lo que viene siendo una inspección o reporte de inspección.
Wow. Pues la inspección es una de las partes más importantes cuando vas a comprar una casa. La razón por la inspección no es para poder regresar al vendedor y decirle, ¿sabes qué? Quiero que me des un crédito de $10,000 o quiero que me arregles todas las cosas que están malas de la casa, porque como comprador, especialmente primer comprador, tú tienes en tu mente esa expectativa de que vas a hacer tu inspección y te van a arreglar todo porque tú la vas a comprar como tú la quieres. Pero eso no es correcto.
Déjate parar un poquito porque nomás para atrasarnos un poquito lo que viene siendo o qué es una inspección. Un inspector va a ir a tu propiedad y ver la fundación, la plomería, la electricidad y el techo. Esos son más o menos los 4 cosas mínimos que están viendo sobre la condición de la propiedad. Entonces, si hay algunas reparaciones o algunas cosas que salen sobre ese reporte, en este caso, Ricardo va a poder negociar reparaciones, pero eso es lo más importante. Se negocian esas reparaciones. No es automático que el vendedor lo tiene que arreglar.
Y no es garantizado. No es garantizado.
Pero la mayoría de las veces se trabaja entre las dos personas y todos están de acuerdo.
Y ese es un costo del comprador.
Vamos a decir,
un muy buen costo.
Sí.
Un promedio, por ejemplo, una casa de 2,000 pies cuadrados te va a salir más o menos unos $600 por ahí. Más o menos, puede ser un poquito más, un poquito menos, pero para que se preparan.
La inspección es algo importantísimo, ¿verdad? ¿Por qué? Porque te proteges a lo que no puedes ver. Siempre digo eso. Si hacemos... Todo el mundo ha visto una casa que dice, esta es la casa que quiero, y a la vista está bien, pero no necesariamente está correctamente la plomería, como dice David, ¿verdad? De hecho, puede tener problemas, ¿verdad?
Muy importante. Están comprando una casa, ¿se puede decir usada? No
pues
nueva.
Sí,
no es nueva.
No es nueva.
No es nueva. No es del año.
Por eso es un requisito, es una buena sugerencia tomar esa home inspection.
Para que ustedes sepan, como compradores, saben la condición de la propiedad, se pueden ir preparando. Si X razón, si siguen con la compra de esa propiedad, saben qué condición va a estar esa propiedad.
Sí.
Ahora,
no es requisito, recomendación.
Es muy recomendable.
Es una recomendación.
Y muy importante.
So let me flip the script. And so in Spanish, I mentioned to our listeners that there is a big difference, and a lot of people do get mixed up with these definitions or with these titles. There's a big difference between a home inspection and a home appraisal. A home inspection is going to give you the condition of the property, roof, foundation, electrical, and plumbing. The appraisal is going to give you the value of the home. You as a buyer want to know that you're buying a property at fair market value. So Chanel, can school us on what an appraisal is?
So we have to order an appraisal. That's pretty standard in order to get the value of opinion of value, from the appraiser. So it pretty much what the bank would qualify up to. They would only loan you what the home is worth.
Funny enough, some appraisers do call out conditions of the property as well.
Which is good. It's good for the seller.
No
it's
doubt.
good for the buyers.
No doubt.
So
And that's the difference between the home inspection and the appraisal is that if the appraiser calls out anything that's a safety or hazard,
It must.
it is a
completed.
non-negotiable.
Yeah,
it's a condition
That's
to
true.
close the loan. So whether the seller fixes it or the buyer fixes it, most of the time it's a condition
it's
on the
seller,
seller because it has to get done in order to close.
But
at
what
the
are
end
the-
of the
what are-
day,
what are some of those
but
things,
at
though?
the end of the day,
Smoke detector, double strap on the water heater,
exactly,
carbon monoxide.
no carpet. You know what I mean?
anything safety related
Chipped
too.
paint.
Anything safety related.
That's a long list, but at the end of the day, it has to get done, and this is where we have to work together as a team, the buyer and the seller, to come to a mutual agreement and get it done.
It's important that everybody understands that an appraisal report is, like Chanel said, it's an opinion of value, but the person that's being hired, that's basically it. And the person that's being hired to do the appraisal report, okay, represents the lending company, because ultimately we're using that appraisal report as collateral for the house. Right now, if you're not buying, or if you're not financing a property, you don't need an appraisal. I mean, it's optional, but in essence, you just pay. If you agree to pay the price, then that's what it is. Now,
But you still want to have
Right.
an inspection done. So if we confuse you even more and turn you around and flip you
This is-
upside down.
This is another
Hold
topic,
on.
a very good topic.
Something very important, though. Something very important. It is important that everybody understands, okay? Buyer and seller agree to the price of the property, okay? Now, this is super important, because if I agree to pay a certain dollar amount and the seller accepts, that's actually a binding agreement. Now, the appraisal report is just so that your lender or your loan can actually, comply with whatever it is that you got pre-approved for. But that does not mean that, oh, wait, the house is not worth. The house is worth what you are offering, right? So again, it's a very, very, I guess it's open for debate, right? But what I always tell people is this: you're going to pay $800,000, right? And the seller accepted that. Now, if the appraisal, remember, it's an opinion of value. If the appraiser says, hey, you know what? I think this is worth $790,000. That does not automatically. Now, we have great agents here that would probably negotiate the price to that, but you're agreeing to $800,000. Now, you can back out because of that appraisal, or don't
Well,
proceed.
we can
but you-
request to
right?
renegotiate at the appraised value, and that's
Buyer could pay the difference.
yeah. The buyer can pay the difference. In a very rare case, will they have the money to do that? Normally, my recommendation is that we go back to the seller and say, "Hey, seller, here's a copy of the appraisal. Appraised value says it's $10,000 lower. At this time, we would like to renegotiate at the appraised value." 9 times out of 10,
I want to say
we
that's
can work
also
that
very
out.
rare that happens. We are in San Diego.
Sure.
It's happened to us two.
Well, you'd be
Yeah, very-
surprised.
More than 5
Yeah.
times.
I'm
It's
gonna
very rare.
disagree. I'm gonna disagree.
It's very
I'm
rare.
gonna disagree
Now-
because look, at the end of the day, we're gonna bat for you, right? And we're gonna want to, on the
You're the
listing
best,
side and on the buying side, we're always gonna try to get you the best deal. But at the end of the day, the buyer makes the ultimate decision. And if the buyer, this is the house that they want,
I'm
and they
saying
have
it's-
the ability to do it,
Yeah, you'll
I
pay
saw
it.
this
Right.
happen a lot in
It's
2021 and 2022.
That was just
rare.
ridiculous.
And
So,
this
however,
year,
I
it's
say
still happening.
it's very
So-
rare for it to
2023.
happen.
Here's the beauty
It's not
about all of
common.
this.
Right.
But it
right.
is happening.
Here's
It
the
does
beauty
happen.
about all of this potential home buyer that's listening to us. The appraisal, in a sense, what I tell my clients, is a bit of a safety net for you. Because if appraised value comes in at value, then you should feel confident knowing that you're purchasing a property at fair market value. If appraised property comes in lower, let's say it's $10,000 lower than the contract price, I, as your agent, am going to ask to renegotiate that. Most likely we'll get that renegotiated for you. In the situation, which is not incredibly rare here in San Diego, that the appraised value comes in $10,000 higher than your contract price,
Be happy.
you're winning because you're walking in with $10,000 equity, instant
Right off the
equity.
start.
And just as a footnote to that, you do not get to access that money.
I am so glad you said that because
And the reason why is because you don't yet own the
Own
property.
the property,
Right.
right.
So in a
And-
refinance you can, but,
and
but
on the
again,
flip side, I think
it's-
sellers
it's a nice thing to
We'll
have.
give you more money.
It's a nice thing to have as a potential buyer.
Yeah, that's-
that particular.
And by the way,
segment,
the
so.
reason I said that is because I have experience where people overbid, thinking maybe, to me, incorrectly thinking that if the appraisal doesn't come in, they're guaranteed a lower price, and that's not the case.
And that's when the transaction goes sideways.
Right.
Well, and
don't be like that, because it's not going to happen.
I think it's funny you bring that up, because as a listing agent, we kind of have a sense of that when offers start coming in, right?
Course.
So we have multiple offer situations, and then one just kind of blows everyone out of the water.
Like 100,000 over, right?
But let's say
they don't have money in their bank account.
a good listing agent is going to sit with you and be like presenting all the offers, and here's one that's just like too amazing, right? Yeah. And then you're like, let's look at the assets. Let's look at their pre-approval.
But not all agents do that. So that means that, besides you're a very good agent, that you look at all that information, which you should.
Absolutely, because my job is to now vet the best terms, price, and timeline for my client.
And a strong buyer,
right?
You don't want someone who, in essence, doesn't have a DU approval, manual underwrite.
Price is a very important part of the sale, but if you cannot perform, then all you've done is now wasted 2 weeks of the seller's timeline, because you're wishing and hoping
that it'll work, that it'll stick.
The lower price is something we're going to be aware of. So as a practice, when I get those types of offers, we automatically counter that appraisal is not on the table, because we want to make sure that we know what work comps are, we know where pricing is, that there's language in a counteroffer that says, in the event the appraisal is not met, buyer understands the expectation will be, and then those buyers fall off.
Right.
So that's why
you never
work
hear
with
from
matters,
them again.
right? Because I could have 5 great buyers, and the one that looks like, wow, 100,000 more, those other 4 buyers were just as qualified, and I could be closing
if not
with
more.
them.
And we were just having this conversation on that buyer that I helped in Rancho Del Rey. Yeah. He submitted an offer $100K over asking price, and I was dying.
And they actually accepted your offer, right?
And they accepted my offer, but I submitted a complete packet with proof of funds. He had money in his 401k that he was ready to liquefy in order to make this happen. So, and we put a no appraisal contingency because he was ready to go all the way.
Did he win?
And
he did.
And it came in at value, and I almost don't say it.
We know.
Don't say it. It's a children's
Grab
show.
your pants.
The gesture was enough.
How happy are you that you decided to tune into this show full of
shit,
full of nuggets and knowledge and important information that is imperative for you as a potential buyer to know and understand, and also as a potential home seller, knowing that this information implies to you as well. This is Compra Casa San Diego, your show, real estate and mortgage info en tu idioma. We thank you all again for checking us out. Stay tuned. And we're not done yet. I just wanted to really quickly switch gears here, and before I was rudely interrupted by Ricardo, go back to 30 seconds, and I was talking about my wife. I was going to get into this, and the original first question that I was going to ask was, you get your offer accepted. Let me switch it. Let me switch it to Ricardo.
Oh, man,
Ricardo's your
long
kick-ass
gone.
agent. He gets your offer accepted because he's badass. Congratulations, you're in escrow. You open escrow. You're going to receive an email from the escrow company saying, we need your EMD.
What
the hell is that?
It's an EMD.
What? I think
EDM?
it's emergency medical
EDM?
declaration.
It
It does sound scary, and it is
music?
scary.
Is that something that we have to go to the ER for?
And so, right. See, there's
Is that a concert?
There's a cream for
Festival?
EMD.
EDM?
It's not EDM.
It's EDC.
Shout out Cascade.
Cross
It's
is coming up.
EDC. So, Ricardo, what is an EMD when you first open escrow?
So your EMD is your earnest money deposit, which in the contract, in standard states that should be received to escrow within 3 days of your offer being accepted.
Which is normally 1% of the contract price. That is also negotiable. But you know, the industry standard here, at least in San Diego County, is 1% of contract price. So what does that mean? You're buying a house at $500,000. You're going to be writing a check to the escrow company, not to the seller, but to the escrow company as a good faith hold in the form of $5,000. That money doesn't go to the seller. It's your money. It's actually money that is applied applied to the closing costs.
Doesn't go to the agent either.
It doesn't go to anybody.
Also,
I'm more than happy if you want to write me a check. But you know,
I
again,
think a lot of like buyers get confused.
They get scared.
Confused because they're like, wait, this is on top of all of my monies. No, it actually goes towards whatever you have to bring to the
I think
table.
one thing that's important to remember that when you're in contract, we kind of talked about this the other day. When you're in contract, everything needs to be mutually agreed upon in writing. So escrow doesn't have the right to release those funds. They're just holding it. They're a third party. And until they have written instructions from both sides, that money sits there.
The word you use is actually what I tell the clients: a good faith deposit.
It's a good faith deposit, good faith hold.
You don't have an earnest deposit.
It shows the seller that
You can still call me though. I'm still help.
It shows the seller that you're a serious buyer. You seriously are wanting to commit to the purchase of this property. I'm saying wanting to commit because there are checks and balances that you as a buyer are going to be looking at when it comes to buying, again, in the form of an inspection and in the form of an appraisal. But should that come out clean, then this kind of leads me to my next question. Ricardo, what is a contingency to the contract, or what is a contingency to the purchase?
Before you answer that, un resumen.
Un
resumen,
claro.
¿sí?
Perdón, chicos.
El depósito, al aceptar tu contrato, se requiere un depósito de buena fe que se va a la compañía de escrow. La compañía de escrow es se puede decir que es como el árbitro de la transacción, ¿sí? No representa ni al comprador ni al vendedor, representa el contrato, ¿sí? Ese depósito se retiene en buena fe hasta que cumplan todos con sus obligaciones, el vendedor con sus obligaciones y el comprador con sus obligaciones. Y lo que comentamos es de que no está comprometido, no está garantizado, o sea, se les puede regresar. Mientras tanto, si no proceden con la transacción, se regresa y si se queda la transacción, es parte de su enganche eventualmente.
Preguntita, el earnest deposit, el depósito para escrow, ¿de dónde puede venir?
Muy buena pregunta.
Muy importante, porque mucha gente me dice, no tengo dinero, pero
importante, nunca en forma de efectivo, porque eso es, si van a financiar la compra, es un problema muy grande. El dinero tiene que estar en su cuenta bancaria, puede ser de fondos que ustedes ya tienen o puede venir de ya sea un pariente si es una regalía. Lo que no pueden hacer es sacar todo el efectivo que tienen, ir a depositarlo y hacer el cheque, porque después la transacción de préstamo va.
From your own bank account and or a gift. Cannot be cash, cannot be.
Y si tienen duda sobre eso y no hagan nada, hablen con su prestamista.
Yes. Don't do anything
Quiero seguir
if you
en
have
este
questions.
tema en español porque eso era la pregunta para Ricardo, pero ustedes como compradores hay ciertos pasos que ustedes tienen que tomar para seguir en la compra de la propiedad. Protecciones. Van a tener una inspección de la propiedad. Van a tener un avalúo. Esos pasos se llaman contingencies o contingencias. Entonces, Mirna, Ricardo, explícanos lo que viene siendo una contingencia entre la compra de una propiedad por medio del contrato.
Omar, ayer nos estabas explicando.
Es una protección, sí. La contingencia es una protección que te permite, ya sea seguir adelante o cancelar si la protección que te están otorgando el contrato no cumple con tu deseo. Ejemplo, avalúo, inspección. Si hay algo en la inspección que no era algo que esperaban.
Si hay un hoyo en el techo y no quieren seguir con la compra de la propiedad, pueden cancelar la compra de la propiedad, le regresan su depósito y siguen adelante con la búsqueda de la propiedad.
Y es regresando al tema, ¿no? No es algo automático, simplemente que es algo que se pone sobre la mesa. Van con sus agentes van a decir, ok, en la inspección nos dimos cuenta de que salió este problema. Usted como vendedor, ¿está dispuesto a arreglarlo? Negociable, ¿sí? Negociable.
No estoy...
Y si en caso de que no lleguen a un acuerdo, se cancela y se le regresa el depósito de buena fe.
¿Qué piensas tú, Chanel?
English for my followers only. Ditto.
The question to Ricardo, but you can easily answer this question. Again, there are certain steps when it comes to the purchase of a property, certain milestones we'll call it, right? Which AKA called contingencies. What is a contingency and how does it apply to the purchase of your home?
Contingencies are just there to protect the buyers and sellers, right? I think I should say that for both. But yes, appraisal contingency, home inspection contingency. Let's just say there's so many red flags on your home inspection report.
And I want out.
And they went out on day 9 and home inspection is due on day 10. You can cancel, right?
It protects you as a buyer should, again, let's say in the...
Now, I'm not encouraging to cancel just because you don't like the floors.
There's a giant hole in the roof, and via the home inspection,
you got that roof holes.
I know. Did something happen?
Santa never came to my house.
We're going to hear that story next. We're going to hear that story about the roof.
Was there a hole in the roof at Mama Becky's?
Should you decide to not want to purchase on that property, you as a potential buyer can say, hey, you know what? Thanks, seller. I don't want to take this on. I want to cancel the purchase. I do not want to proceed. Escrow. I would like my deposit back. You're well within your right to cancel as long as you're within your contingency time frame.
Avita sends it back.
And it's something logical, not because,
you can't just cancel just because you want to cancel. There has to be a legitimate reason to cancel. Because keep in mind, a purchase contract is a fully executed purchase contract is a legally binding contract.
Correct.
So for both sides
have to
correct.
perform.
Seller cannot just cancel on you just because he received, after he accepted your offer, he received a $10,000 higher
or decided not
offer.
to cancel because he couldn't find the house that he wants.
But here's the thing, though. Sometimes buyers get confused and they think that contingency that's in place is their way out, right? So if they've passed their inspections and they're satisfied with the condition of the home, and then all of a sudden a better house becomes available and they want that house, and then they're like, oh, well, let's cancel on the loan contingency because I still have that contingency in place.
This goes back to good faith, right?
And
this goes back to good faith.
And so since we're speaking about contingencies on the real estate side, when we're working with our clients, we're always talking about contingencies, right? Because those are deadlines that we need to meet. But sometimes on the lending side, depending on who you're working with and the realtor that you're working with, you might not even hear any communication on the contingencies and when the loan contingency is due.
There's a loan approval contingency, right?
I mean, I don't make recommendations on contingencies.
No. But it's important though, because as a buyer,
I can update you guys.
As a buyer, when you're working with your lender, Myrna, maybe you can touch a little bit on this, but why are contingencies important, and why is it important that the buyer is fulfilling their responsibilities when the lenders are asking for things from the buyers?
Well, one, you have to be a serious buyer if you're actually in contract. Mm-hmm. And you have to be respectful for all parties. So basically when me or, my friends here, we provide a pre-approval letter, is because this is a serious situation and we have to do what's best for the full party involved.
Mm-hmm. Everyone.
Yes.
Escrow,
sellers. I don't want this house. And I was like, well, you should have thought about it. I'm sorry, but it's my name. It's our reputation. We have to go through. Yes. If you get fired from your work, it's a different story. But
yeah, if there's a legitimate
but
reason.
But there are loan contingencies also to add to that.
And so how long does it take when, you request from a buyer, certain documents, right, in order to get full loan approval? And, we have a 17-day loan contingency period, and you get that on day 15.
I just remembered a story, and remember that.
About a hole in the roof.
About a hole in the roof.
That we are all your friends here, and how important it is to tell your loan officers everything while you're in escrow. Because not too long ago, they had a client who was in escrow and did not tell them that they got fired while they were in escrow.
so switch jobs.
Switch jobs.
That's another full episode.
That's another episode.
That's about an hour and a half.
I think that's another episode.
Let's cut there, everyone. For that one. I'm gonna need more than alcohol for that.
You know what? I'm glad. You know what? There is a lot more, and I think that we're gonna continue this conversation into the next show. Because there's a lot to it, but it's important for us to continue on because we want to make sure that we let you all know about it. Thank you all for checking us out. This show, Compra Casa San Diego. This is your show. Check us out on YouTube, Instagram, DM us. Real estate and mortgage info en tu idioma.
Call me.
Gracias.
Deuces.
Adios.
Damn, we got personal.